morning. I'd like to call this work session of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 4th day of November, 2021. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Please be seated. All right. Now, Sunday, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Supervisor Schneiderman,
Here.
Councilwoman Lofstad,
Here.
Councilman Martell,
Here.
Councilman Bouvier,
Here.
Councilman Schivoni.
Present.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sunday. All right. So let's get started. First item on the agenda is reviewing the draft agenda for the November 9th meeting. But before we do that, couple quick housekeeping things, because we do have Ryan here. And I just want to take a moment to congratulate all of the candidates from Tuesday's election. Those who won, those who didn't win, everybody worked really hard, and everybody, got their message out to the people. I want to congratulate Councilman Schivoni on his victory. I want to congratulate Cindy McNamara on her victory. Sunday, you as well on your squeaker election.
Thank you.
And you and I both had the fortune of not having an opponent. So, but a lot of people worked really hard, and it's part of democracy and the American way. And to all those who participated, in whether you were a candidate or just simply went out and voted, thank you for your participation. So with that, I'd like to, and I could go on and on talking about those who won or lost. There are some, votes still being counted. So with respect to the uncounted votes, I will, I'll stop here with that, but we'll switch over. Well, if anybody else wants to say anything about Tuesday, then we'll go to Ryan and we'll get a COVID update.
I just want to
like to-
congratulate Tommy John and you, Jay, in your re-elections.
Thank you,
I
Cindy.
look forward to working with you for 2 more years, at least. And that's all I have to say. So I'm glad it's over, quite frankly.
Thank you. Well, your term is, you want a 4-year term. I have a 2-year term.
Mhm.
I think I'm term limited, so it's you might continue on without me at some point.
Yes.
I mean,
I'd like to just add to what you said there, Jay, and I agree with everything that you said. It takes a lot for people to run for election, and we had a lot of really great candidates step up and run, brought important issues to the table. I want to, congratulate all the people that I ran with, a really great slate, and also to the people who won, and congratulate Miss McNamara as well. We look forward to working with her on this board. So again, this is our system. It's a necessary part of our system, and, it has happened, and we move forward.
All right. So with that, let's talk COVID. We're not quite done. The election's over, but the pandemic isn't. Though things are getting better. Things are definitely improving, and Ryan has sort of the latest on where we are with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor, and congratulations to all those that were successful in the election as well. The numbers have actually, on the COVID side of things, have gotten significantly better. I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but nationally speaking, there's a really happy conversation going on right now in the the medical profession that seems to believe that we may have crossed the hurdle, not the finish line, but gotten over the hurdle of the peak of the spread of the Delta variant. So that's a positive thing, that the numbers have been going down considerably, not just locally but nationally, for enough time now that they believe that spread level has diminished a bit. In terms of our local numbers, I'm very happy to report that the most recent numbers, which is, from October 30th to November 1st, only had us at about a 3-person per day positive increase, which is the lowest number we've seen in a while. Now, that's only over the course of a couple of days. The average still right now is probably, with those numbers added into it, we're probably just under 10 a day if we looked at like a 10-day average for us, or even a 5-day at this point. But from October 30th to November 1st, it was only 3 a day. Let's see what the numbers come in at in the next day or two, with people, perhaps gathering over the weekend with Halloween, and see if that has any kind of an impact on some of the spread numbers. If it stays down over the next, 2 or 3 more days, then I think that's a very good sign for us. As of Friday, communications with both hospitals indicated that their patient count for COVID census was actually very low as well. As of Friday, Southampton Hospital only had 3 COVID patients in-house, which is great. We'd love to see 0, but 3 is great. Of that, a couple of them were in the ICU, one of which was on a vent. But as has been the case, those tend to be unvaccinated individuals, where vaccinated individuals, even if they do end up in the hospital, are not dealing with the same, level of acuity of symptoms as those that have been vaccinated. The unvaccinated folks tend to be the ones that advance to, unfortunately, ICU and vents and continue to have worse problems. Vaccinated individuals, even if they end up in the hospital, tend to be much less severe. PBMC, to the north side of us, was down at 5 COVID patients in their census, which is a good number too, because even when Southampton, which is a bit smaller hospital, was low, PBMC for a few days there, when we had spoken to them, had gone back up to around the 10 range, I think, or somewhere thereabouts, 8 or 10. So to hear that they're down at 5, and of that, most of them they reported were unvaccinated individuals, and there were 0 vaccinated individuals in their ICU, similar to the experiences that we're seeing at Southampton. So even those that are vaccinated that end up getting COVID and advancing into the hospital are still much more protected and not seeing the same severity of symptoms that forces them to be placed into ICU or on vents. So it's still a very valuable tool towards fighting the spread of the pandemic and maintaining people's health. That's all I've got in terms of the COVID numbers update for you.
Yeah, Ryan, my numbers are like yours on the daily. I'm showing about 5 cases a day, based on sort of the moving average. So that, town-wide, so that's based on population, that's 1 case per 14,000 people, maybe 1 case per 15,000 people, and 15,000 is the approximate population of Hampton Bays. So just to put it in perspective, it would be like 1 person a day in Hampton Bays testing positive. Now, that might not be perfectly accurate, because the incident rate might not be even across town, and it tends to, if 1 member of a family gets it, you might end up with 2 or 3 members of the family getting it. So it's hard to look at it just through that lens, but that's half of what we were a couple weeks ago. So we have definitely moved in a much better direction. I like to, I'm waiting for that day where there's no new cases. We'll get there. Probably won't get to celebrate, because this thing just seems to drag on and on, but we're definitely, things are definitely getting better. And I notice life returning to, not to normal, but in some ways a little closer to normal. We still have the same policy at Town Hall. Other towns don't have this policy. If you're unvaccinated, you have to wear a mask. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. It's as simple as that. I don't see any immediate changes to it. I know other towns, if you're in Town Hall, you have to wear a mask whether you're vaccinated or not. But vaccination is certainly helpful. Boosters, a lot of people are going and getting booster shots now, and there's booster shots available at all over the place, from, pharmacies to the hospital to doctor's offices. So there are options for you to get a booster shot. I think it's still not available to everyone. I think it's available to over 65, Ryan? Is that the cutoff?
So boosters right now, to the best of my knowledge, the eligible population is those 64, 65 and over, people with underlying conditions that have a greater possibility of having negative impacts if they were to get infected, as well as people with a occupational risk associated with their profession. So those would be a lot of the same. Basically, if we went back to the beginning of the vaccine rollout, it's a lot of the same groups that were initially available for the vaccine. Was the 65 and over population, your first responders, hospital workers, things like that have an exposure risk, and then those with underlying conditions that are vulnerable.
Ryan, what about kids? Kids?
Yeah, so that's where I was just going to go. They did just CDC. I believe it's official at this point, although I think they just solidified it, within the last 24 to 36 hours, has expanded the eligibility for the vaccine to the 5 and up bracket at this point. 5 years old and up. So now kids will be able to get it. And the reports are that they're actively pushing, vaccine supplies towards, pediatricians' offices, health clinics, community health organizations, things like that, so that it becomes more widely available for parents that may wish to get their children inoculated.
Okay. That's great. So more and more people will be vaccinated, including kids. Any other questions for Ryan? I know we had a couple weather events that we watched. Seems like everything was okay, right? Everything was okay, and beaches held up. I haven't heard of any significant erosion. So
no, we handled them pretty well out here, thankfully.
All right. Thank you. All right. No other questions for Ryan? All right. We'll let you go back to work, Ryan. Actually, this was work.
Yes.
Let you continue work in a different direction. All right. So why don't we jump then to the draft review? This is for the meeting on November 9th, 2021, and there are some add-ons, but let's do the draft agenda first, and then we'll do the add-ons. This meeting is going to be a 1 o'clock meeting. It's going to be via Zoom, so we're still meeting via Zoom. We can't get back to town hall fast enough, as far as I'm concerned. I'm so ready to get back and see everybody. The elevator is still being repaired. It should be done by the end of the year. So certainly by January 1, we could swap it out and try to find a place to meet if you want to do that. But you guys can talk to me offline and see if that makes sense. If not, we'll stay via Zoom until the end of this year, and then we'll go back into regular meetings. So again, 1 o'clock, and there are 4 public hearings. The first considers a local law amending Chapter 330 of the Southampton Town Code, the addition of Article 14, Cultural Resources Protection Overlay District. Again, you remember this is a continuation of a hearing, right? So we're looking at putting some rules on the books for properties in highly sensitive archaeological areas where they might encounter a unmarked grave or a significant cultural resource. And this would require some basic archaeological review before digging a big hole on those properties. The second one is a public hearing on the 2022 preliminary budget. I believe that also, yeah, that's a continuation. It was adjourned from October 26th. The next one is a public hearing to consider any increases proposed in the maximum amount to be expended annually in the town's special districts. That also was adjourned from the 26th of October. And the last one is a public hearing to consider the construction of a new ambulance facility in the Southampton Ambulance District pursuant to Town Law 202B. And that, we've already discussed that. We've already had some hearings on this, but the price was a little higher than anticipated. And I think this will put everything in place that's necessary for the actual construction of that ambulance barn. All right, any questions on public hearings? Hearing none, we will go to town board resolutions, the first one being offered by Councilman Martell.
So ID 38694, co-sponsored with the entire town board, authorize H2M Architects, Engineers, Land Surveying, and Landscape Architecture, DPC, to submit a Water Infrastructure Improvement Act grant application to New York State on behalf of the Hampton Bays Water District for subaqueous water main crossing projects at Ponquag Bridge and Shinnecock Canal.
All right, the next one, also sponsored by all of us, 38722. It's related. It authorizes H2M Architects, Engineers, Land Surveying, and Landscape Architecture, DPC, to submit a WIIA grant application in New York State on behalf of the town and Hampton Bays Water District for plant number 4 wellhead treatment for iron and manganese removal, and authorize the supervisor to sign all related documents.
Town Board Resolution number 38663, authorize the purchase of off-site backup software solution.
ID 38682, authorized purchase of snowplow and spreader parts from Suffolk County contract with Trius Incorporated.
38672 authorizes the sale of 406 Mill Road, West Hampton for $401,201.
I'd like to be added to that, Reso, Supervisor.
All right, Sunday, you got that? Councilman
I
Bugby
do, thank you.
sponsoring. All right, Rick.
ID number 38669, authorized the supervisor to sign amendment to contract with York Labs for the Hampton Bays Water District.
38664 authorizes supervisor to sign contract extension for property cleanup to bring properties back into compliance with Rockmore Contracting Corporation. 38695, it was sponsored by the whole board, authorizes supervisor to execute grant agreement with Suffolk County for Operation Shield for Maritime Law Enforcement Services Program. 38710 authorizes supervisor to sign contract with Suffolk County Water Authority to connect public water at Poxabog Golf Center. I am happy about that. Yes, that's, we have a restaurant there. It ought to be on public water. So there's a $31,000 cost for water main extension and tapping fees. Go ahead, Council.
Okay, Town Board Resolution 38714, authorize the 2022 renewal of ESRI Incorporated for software licenses utilized in the GIS division.
38730, authorize the purchase of 8 Ford Utility Police Interceptor all-wheel drive vehicles from New York State OGS contract with Buyer Ford LLC.
And Sunday, I'd like to be added to that resolution.
That's for the police
Okay.
department.
Okay, all good.
38702, authorize the supervisor to execute a 2022 support agreement for MRI Software LLC, formerly known as Happy Software Inc., not happy anymore, for Town of Southampton Housing Authority for the administration of the Southampton Town Housing Authority Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. Section 8 Voucher Program. No laughs on my not happy anymore joke.
Laugh.
Oh, you probably,
Inside.
you're on mute.
No, I'm not.
Town Board Resolution 38689. This is to authorize the supervisor to execute a consulting contract agreement with H2M Architects, Engineers, and Land Surveying and Landscape Architecture, DPC, for rehabilitation for the Bellows Pond Road elevation storage tank.
Sunday, if you can add me to that one also, please.
Certainly.
All right, 38-724, authorize the supervisor, or this is co-sponsored with all of you, authorize the supervisor to execute a consulting contract amendment with H2M Architects, Engineers, Land Surveying, and Landscape Architecture, DPC, for wellhead treatment at plant number 4.
Town Board Resolution 38676, authorize supervisor to execute an agreement with CCSI for email server upgrades and authorize the purchase of Microsoft licenses from Dell. I can't read too.
Can you just hold on one second? It's going back one, and I just want to make sure I understand this. Okay. All right. Moving on to 38731, authorize the supervisor to execute an amendment with Tyler Technologies, Inc. to provide staff familiar with assessment assessment updates, hearings, and small claims assessments against the town. 38704, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier and Martel, authorizes the supervisor to sign a contract extension with the Pier Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Ricky's Plumbing Supply for the supply of plumbing supplies to the town.
Town Board Resolution ID 38666 is authorize the supervisor to sign a contract extension for public bathroom cleanup with Winston George DBA, doing business as Winston Cleaning. I'm sorry.
Resolution ID 38678, declare items surplus and authorize disposal.
All right, and it looks like it's some sort of dish machine. So, all right, 38739 amends the 2021 adopted budget for Hampton Bays Water District. 38670 amends the 21 to 25 capital budget for network infrastructure. 38696 amends the 21 to 25 capital budget for West Hampton Community Center. 38.
I'd like to be added to that, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
38745 recalls and amends resolution number 2021-869, adopting the 2022 budget process schedule. 38705 amends the 2022 preliminary budget for organizational charts. Just a minor
Town
change.
Board Resolution ID 38651 to amend the 2022 preliminary budget for staffing and spending.
All right, hold on. All right, so those are,
These are essentially all the amendments that all of you have brought forward. Actually, I think the town board, the whole town board should sponsor this. As you can see, these are just the amendments made to salaries and some spending.
right. So these are all the sort of agreed changes to the preliminary budget.
Correct.
All right, and I don't think there's no additional tax implication, don't believe, on any of this.
No, that's my understanding. There is not.
All right, so we can talk more. We can talk more to Len about it. All right.
Well, this came from Len's office, so.
Right. All right, 38657 amends the 2022 preliminary capital budget for Southampton Ambulance Building. So it's adding, I think, 800,000 to what we had originally proposed for the ambulance. 38707 amends the 2022 preliminary budget, capital budget, and adds capital project Old Farm Road.
Sunday, I'd like to be added to the previous resolution, 38657. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
Um, All right, 38716 amends the 2022 preliminary capital budget for estimated roll forward account amounts, sorry. And 38717 authorizes increase in the maximum amount to be expended annually in the town of Southampton special districts. And you can see the changes there in the body of the resolution. 38718 adopts the 2022 to 2026 capital program and the 2022 capital budget. 38719 adopts the 2022 final operating budget. 38720 approves and authorizes the improvements of Old Farm Road between Narrow Lane and Haynes Path, Sagaponic. This was this is a town law 200, I think. Right?
Mhm.
Yes, that's correct.
So we do the work, but then bill it back to the district.
That's correct.
All right, and then bring it into the highway system. All right, 38701, approve designations for East End Regional Intervention Court.
Town Board Resolution ID 38654 is authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Hampton Bays Public Library, Hampton Bays Magical Sleigh Ride on December 17th, 2021 from 5:30 PM to 7:30 PM.
38642, authorizing road name change from Center Trail Road to simply Center Trail. That's out in Watermill. Now, why? I just have to understand this, because didn't we already change it from Dead Trail Road to Center Trail Road? So what happened now? They didn't like Center Trail Road. They wanted just Center Trail.
That probably was the original ask. That's what I think. I don't know. Okay, I mean,
Dropping off the road.
so it's not going to be Center Trail Road now. It's going. It was Dead
Central Trail. They're just dropping the word road off for some reason.
I mean, is that okay to have a road be called a trail?
Yes,
we have a
there's other
couple.
roads ending in trail.
Okay. All right, 38575, public interest order in the matter of the construction of a new ambulance facility in the Southampton Ambulance District pursuant to Town Law 202B. Something that has to accompany that work we're doing with the ambulance. 38699 accepts resignation of a Justice Court clerk, Spanish speaking in Justice Court. 38709 appoints Arthur Gerhauser as acting chief building inspector. Art is extremely experienced, but this is just a temporary arrangement where he's stepping up. He's a retired individual, but he's going to help us through this period while in Dennis's absence, so that we can keep up with the workload over there while we explore candidates for a chief building inspector position. 38668 appoints Keith Tuthill to senior water treatment plant operator type 1B in the Hampton Bays Water District. 38685 appoints Ruth Simon to case manager position in senior services. John?
Town Board Resolution ID 38645 is a notice of public hearing to consider enforcement action at 85 North Phillips Avenue, Remsenburg, for property cleanup, hazard abatement. This will be a subject of our work session today.
Okay, and that hearing will be via Zoom on November 23rd.
November 23rd at 6.
All right, the 38-743 is also notice of public hearing. This one on the acquisition of lands of Michael S. Aronoff, amending the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. That's also the same time. It's oh no, I'm sorry. This is December 14th, Tuesday, December 14th, also via Zoom. Go ahead, John.
Town Board Resolution ID 38706. It's a notice of public hearing to accept the deed of residual fee from Paul and Laura Calamita for property to be maintained as open space located at North Sea pursuant to Southampton Town Code, Chapter 244-4, obtaining of development rights certificate, and Chapter 247, General Municipal Law of the State of New York.
All right, the next one, 38466, we discussed this in work session. It's a notice of public hearing to amend Chapter 330-37, Industrial Districts Table of Use Regulations to include physical fitness facilities as a special exception use in the light industry zone, LI 40, and the LI 200 zoning districts. And the next one is 38430, notice of public hearing to amend chapters 330-5 definitions, 330-33 to define and list medical marijuana dispensary in the business district table of use regulations and enact special exemption standards within 330-162.22 of the zoning code. I don't remember. I think we discussed this at work session too, but these dispensaries, which are completely legal, and there's one in Riverhead now, and our code doesn't say where they can go. So, you know, we look to see whether they're more like pharmacies or more like medical offices. And the truth is they're somewhere in the middle. They're, you know, people come with a prescription and they get their prescription filled, but you can't go like with the CVS with 100 different prescriptions for lots of different types of medicine. It's only for the one. So it's a limited pharmacy type of operation. So I think this allows it in certain zones, typically where pharmacy would be allowed or a medical office complex would be allowed, but with special exemption standards. And let's see what's next.
Town Board Resolution ID 38698. I'm going to have to amend this, but I'll read the notice. It's a notice of public hearing to consider amending Chapter 123, Building Construction, Article 5, Energy Conservation, to modify the HERS rating standards and incorporate New York Stretch Energy Code 2020 into the town code. And you guys are probably remember that we had a well-done presentation from planning from Michael Lieberman on this. And I can provide you the stretch code I think was sent to you before. I could also talk a little bit about it if anybody wants to.
Well, I just want to know, I mean, you don't have to amend it because this is just a draft resolution. So you just have to.
In the draft resolution, I have to amend the time for the public hearing from December 14th to November 23rd. We have to move it back so that we can get the grant from NYSERDA by the end of the year. So we have to move it to the 23rd.
Yeah, so you feel you're just fixing it. So Sunday, you got that changed so that we.
I'll make the amendment for you, John. Just repeat the date, please.
Yeah, it's currently it's December 14th. We're going to move it to November 23rd.
November 23rd.
Yeah, there's a lot of hearings on the 14th.
Okay, that's fine.
And
Okay,
we
we'll make
skipped the reso.
I'm sorry?
We skipped a reso.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. 38469.
We're going back.
Yeah, we did. Thank you, Julie. Sorry. It's on page 53. At the bottom. It's yours, Jay.
Okay, 38469, notice of public hearing to amend Town Code Chapters 330, 162, special exception, and 330-33, table of use regulations listing self-service storage facility as a special exemption use in the highway business zoning district. I think this was that work session too. These self-storage facilities are virtually no traffic whatsoever. Highway business, we try to do that type of use, like the car dealerships, so people are not constantly coming and going, but, limited traffic, you don't buy a car every day. So highway business seems like the perfect location for these types of uses. We've had some interest, so that if that goes through, that would allow self-storage with under certain conditions. Primarily the proper screening and aesthetic considerations. All right, so where are we now then, John? Sunday's got the changes.
Yep.
Basically, you're making the hearing earlier, right?
Yeah, we have to because we want to get a grant money from NYSERDA in order to do that, and it has to be done before the 1st of January. Otherwise, we lose 50 grand.
All right. Are we up to 38686?
38744.
All right, hold. What page is it?
62.
62. That's mine as well.
Okay.
And
Got it.
I've lost here we go. So this is Town Board Resolution ID 38744, co-sponsored with Councilman Lofstad. This is a notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 123, building construction as it relates to effective periods of building permits.
Yeah, so explain that you're giving people more time, right?
Yeah, it's up to four, I believe it's four. Had that written down here someplace.
Yeah, I think it goes from a 1 year to 2 year for a building.
Basically,
1 year, 2 year.
but
And
no
then
re-
4 extensions.
and no renewal at the end of that period, and that's part of trying to fit this into our e-permitting system as well.
No, it does allow, it allows up to 4 extensions of.
4 extensions, but no more after that.
All right, so but 4 6-month extensions.
Yes,
So with the
that's 2
total, you better get a total of 4 years plus 2 years, so 6 years to finish a project. No, I'm
No, 4
sorry,
years. Yeah.
4
4
years,
years,
total of 4 years to finish a project.
correct.
Well, what do you do if it's longer than that?
Then you have to come back and renew your permit in person.
All right, because I mean, we're seeing some of these complicated.
Renew or refile?
Oh, refile, you're correct.
Well, what if you do if you're 3/4 of the way through your project?
Refile, according
Yeah.
to this.
File, it's,
What do we do now, though? I mean, it's,
Hi,
Well,
can I
this
give you a little update if you have,
Please.
if you don't mind?
Ken, I'm glad you jumped on. 'Cause
I'm
I'm
only
just-
asking because we're seeing more and more complicated projects and bigger delays in materials.
Right, so right now, good morning, everyone. Right now, the way the code reads is you get 1 year and then 2 3-month extensions. We're proposing that you get 2 years plus 4 6-month extensions. So we're going from 1 year to 4 years. And hopefully you can build something in 4 years. That's a really long time to build something. So it is better in that you have more time to build it, and that issue with the supply chain or labor shortages or weather, you have a lot more room there. Instead of 1 year, now you have 4 years. And if you don't complete it in 4 years, you have to reapply, which is what we do now in the renewals. You reapplying in a year, but we're giving you 4 years now, so it's a lot.
So, so somebody's acting in good faith. They're not going to be denied a renewal if it just took that long. I mean, there's some complicated projects, as we know, so.
I
Like,
think
4
this
years
should,
is
4 years is a really long time, and I think even someone who's paying to have their house built would like it to be done in 4 years. So I think it also protects the consumer who wants their project completed.
Right, that's true, and it protects the neighbor. You
Yeah, who
know,
doesn't want a half-finished
4
house
years
and
before.
liabilities of, things undone also. And codes change, building codes, et cetera. So we want to make sure the renewals kind of happen forever. And so we're not really capturing these permits that are just renewing from 10 years ago. And we were trying to get to like new and improved energy efficiencies and things along those lines. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Dennis,
this,
does this address building projects that change and then go in for new permits or variances in the middle of a building project or that kind of
That's
thing?
an amendment, and that's just a separate, that's a separate kind of thing where you're amending an existing permit. And
Mhm.
it's still the same way. If you need an amendment, you can come in at any time. If you change the scope of your project and you say, I don't actually need this, sunroom or something, and you want to take it off the plans, you could do that at any time. Still,
Right. Well, it generally goes the other way. I want the sunroom now. But would that amendment reset this time period in this code?
No, it's still in the same permit timeframe.
Okay.
and I should point out it's being done to facilitate the e-permit system, right? So,
Yeah.
which
The com-
support
the
the
com-
concept of renewable also, and because 12 months is generally not enough time in the building industry. I think that's what you had told me, Janice, so it
Yeah,
makes
there's
sense.
always been complaints that 12 months is not enough time. So we added an extra year, and also in this code, it gives everybody who applied this past year for a permit and expects that permit to only be good for 1 year, it gives them all that extra year anyway. So everybody gets the extra year because it's such a, there's a lot of lag time right now with everything going on. And so instead of someone saying, but I just paid for 1 year and you just gave everyone 2 years, we just give everyone that extra year. So we don't have to worry about that. And that way everybody's kind of on the same page. Hopefully
Okay,
you
good.
agree that that's fair.
So the neighbor's expectations of 2 years, it's more realistic than a neighbor seeing a building project going on. What they seem to think is year after year after year after year.
Yeah, and it puts a limit on it. At some point it has to expire. And like Councilman Bouvier mentioned, it is like the logic of a renewal doesn't make sense in the computer. So when you want to apply or extend, the computer has like, it clocks out. It says, okay, this is good for 20 months. 6 months, 4 times. And then after that, it's going to say, this is void and you have to start over. Now, starting over, we're not going to make it onerous, but you'll have to resubmit your plans and then the clock starts again. So it's just easier in that way in the digital realm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's actually easier on the building industry, and it helps our permitting process. So, that respect.
Sounds
Thanks
good.
for letting me chime in on that.
All right.
Thanks for being there. I had my notes. I couldn't find them. You jumped in just the right.
John, you got the next one there too.
Yeah, Town Board Resolution ID 38686 is a notice of public hearing to consider historic landmark designation of the 680 Scuttle Hole Road, Watermill, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-67-1-6.5, also known as the Maples.
I'd like to be on there as a co-sponsor on that one too.
Absolutely. It's co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone as well.
Sunday, you got that?
I certainly do.
John, you're next.
Board Resolution ID 38687 is a notice of public hearing to consider landmark designation of the structure known as Laugh-A-Lot located at 8 Studio Lane, Suffolk County Hills, tax map as noted in the resolution.
So this has been before us before, hasn't it?
It has.
It's never been landmarked though?
No.
Okay. And the owner is requesting it be landmarked?
Yes.
And I think we got a letter from the Landmarks and Historic Board in the last couple days, if I remember correctly.
Yep, we did.
No, it's an important structure. I don't know that it's in its original location though.
No,
Is that-
everything got moved, down in there, got moved across the street.
Are we okay? Are we allowed to landmark a building that's not where it originally stood?
I believe we are in this, yes.
I would think so, yeah.
Okay,
We can look into that, the hearing is scheduled.
Well, I mean, it was reviewed by the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board.
Yeah.
right,
They're pretty meticulous. I'm looking at that stuff.
okay. And are we being asked to, I know there were questions in the past with facade easements over there and whether
Yeah.
these structures were visible to the public because it's on a private road. I guess we can cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, well, this is a public hearing, so we'll obviously we'll go through some discussion on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're right, Mr. Supervisor. I think there was a consideration of a facade easement at one point, but I don't think that's what's before you at this point.
And it was more a question of public access as
Yeah.
well. Besides the street, it was actually on property and the extent to which the public could enjoy the easement.
Yep.
Right. It could not be seen, I believe, from the. by any-
And could access, as the council
Right.
pointed, because of the owner at that time. But I think that's gotten all clear.
Okay, I have an open mind about it. All right, 38-723 assumes lead agency for the purpose of secret in connection with NRP Group's change of zone application titled The Preserve at South Country Road for a change from CR 40 to multifamily planned residential district on a 17-acre parcel in order to facilitate development of 104 units at 6 units per acre of affordable rental housing in the hamlet of Quayog.
I'd like to be added to this resolution, please.
Okay, it's just assuming lead agency.
Yes.
Sunny, you got that?
Okay, I do, yes.
And is Janice still there? And Janice, anything
I'm here.
anything you want to add on that 104 unit housing?
Just that we have received an expanded environmental assessment from the applicant. And that was submitted and distributed. The board should have a copy if you want to read this nice giant binder of information, but we can distill it down and we'll give you a report and our recommendation in terms of we'll be doing the EAF part 2 and 3. And that is as your lead agency status, then you actually, you start the review. And then within about a month's time, you'll determine whether or not, it's a pos deck or a neg deck, and then we'll go forward from there.
So we required an EIS, right? But,
Not yet. They gave us like an expanded EAF up front.
oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So you haven't required that yet. You're just at the point where you're saying you're the one that's going to require whatever it is.
Okay.
This resolution is assuming the lead on that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of review for us with the scoping document and a lot of things that the town board as lead agency is going and needs to undertake.
We didn't do a expanded EAF for concern. We did an EIS.
They, applicants give us different types of information up front. And we can take that information and see if there's more needed. And whether or not, really the question comes down to whether or not there's the possibility of one or more significant environmental impacts as a result of the project. That's really what you're looking to find out.
All right.
And so if there is, that becomes an environmental impact statement. And then the main objective is to see how to mitigate those impacts in order for if the project will move forward. So so that's what we'll be looking at now in terms of what they've submitted and what the regulations require, and then give you a recommendation and move on from there.
Okay. All right. So we're going to switch and look at the add-ons. So there's 8 more resolutions. 38721 is Tommy John's. Do you want me to read it, or you got it in front of you?
I'm on my iPad now. I do not have it in front of me. Would you read it, please?
Sure. It's an authorized supervisor to sign DPP with Toshiba for copy machines from Eastern Suffolk BOCES contract. 38726, authorize supervisor to execute 3-year contract with Cullen and Danowski LLP for the annual audit of community preservation funds. 38727, authorize supervisor to execute retainer agreement with Peter Johnson Esquire to provide tax certiorari legal proceedings for and on behalf of the tax assessor's office. 38740, being offered by Councilman Scavone, declares item surplus and authorizes disposal. If you want, I'll go in a minute and check what those things are. 38746, awards the author and authorized supervisor to sign contracts for Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Facility with Commander Electric for the electrical portion, Intricate Tech Solutions for the mechanical portion, Hirsch and Company for the plumbing portion, and Stalco General Contractors for the general construction portion. 38749, terminates automotive equipment operator at Highway Department. 38750, rescinds resolution 2021-1020. And 38751 appoints Shakira Fothergill to senior office assistant position in the town. So I'll check 38740. Surplus items, Panasonic CF19s, which I don't know what that is. Apparently, they're no longer under warranty. I don't know what a CF19 is. So maybe Paula could tell us. I'm assuming it's an IT something. And what was the other one I wanted to check? The resolution we're rescinding was one that appointed an individual to a heavy equipment operator position.
Was that in highway or?
Yeah.
I think it was highway. We have HEOs in a couple departments.
Yeah. The reso, there doesn't say what department.
Yeah, I honestly, I think it was highway.
I seem to recall it was, but I just don't remember.
Yeah, we'd have to probably ask Sandra or Janine.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's highway. The resolution before it's highway. Yeah, that's my recollection. I'm not 100% sure.
All right, so but that's it for the agenda. Anybody have any questions, or are we good to publish?
I'm good.
We had a couple changes that, John, you had that one, the hearing.
Yes.
All right.
First,
Everybody good to go?
Yeah.
All right, Sunday, go ahead. You can publish the agenda.
Terrific. Thank you.
thank you. Sandy.
Okay, so next item is, let's see what time it is. It's scheduled for 11:30. It's right
It's
around
new now.
noon now. All right, so we have, we're gonna need to get Sean Cambridge in for the discussion on
Coming in now.
enforcement action at 85 North Phillips Avenue in Remsenburg.
Hello, Supervisor Schneiderman and members of the town board.
Hey, Sean. Sean Cambridge is an assistant town attorney. So
And,
Sean, do you want to introduce this?
Yes, there's this property, 85 North Phillips Avenue. It's owned by All Island Purchase Corp. They've been in justice court with us for quite some time now. My predecessor, Assistant Town Attorney Harris, had defaulted them for $8,000 back in March of 2018. They stated that they would work towards compliance with the town code. They did not. This went on for about 3 years after the default was vacated. And most recently, on the 21st of last month, I defaulted them for $5,000 again in justice court for failure to appear.
Can you explain that? What do you, that term, I defaulted them, what does that mean?
So when a corporation fails to appear in a justice court, pursuant to the CPL, you can move for a default judgment for $1,000 per docket under Town Law 135. They have various property maintenance violations, including litter, debris, and pool gate enclosure charges. I'll share my screen if that's okay, just so everybody can get an idea of what I'm talking about. They essentially have an in-ground pool that's deteriorated and has construction debris and materials inside of it, as well as some other unsecured structures on site here. So can everybody see what I'm displaying on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the site, 85 North Phillips. And this is the in-ground pool that I'm very concerned about. It's a life safety issue. The Suffolk County Department of Health issued a notice of violation on this back in 2017. These property owners have not taken any action to remediate this situation. We had code enforcement go out there this morning before I presented to you all. And one of our code enforcement officers stated they've knocked down this structure, the home, without any permits. So they completely bulldozed the home within the last, I believe, 48 hours. So that's also very concerning, very alarming, and is showing just general disregard for the authority of the building department and the town attorney's office. So I have this before the board. I'm looking for a forced cleanup and remediation of these conditions. And Officer Rondi of Code Enforcement did take these photos on site. You can see there's an unsecured, some type of foundation or cesspool. I'm not exactly sure what this is. There are a couple of these types of structures on the site. In addition, this is the top view of the swimming pool. You can see there's construction debris, tarps, all sorts of things in there, as well as very high weeds and growths on this property. So generally a very concerning property, many life safety concerns. That's the basis for bringing this before the board today. Are there any questions?
There's a lot of noise there. I don't know where that's coming from.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Oh, my apologies. It might be the heat in here.
The volume on your computer just went up.
Maybe they're doing some more, maybe they're doing more unauthorized construction.
Well, just so you know, this
Sean,
entire subject property, which is the house and the pool and whatnot, are a small part of a 7-acre overall lot that is actually before the planning board for a 7-lot or for a 7-lot subdivision. So that, obviously the board will not give any kind of approvals until these issues are addressed and taken care of.
Much better.
much better. Yeah, I know this has been an ongoing issue in the area for many years. So I appreciate, Sean, what you bringing this to us. There is a development on the west of this property, and there are children and homeowners in the back there as well. So this has been on people's radar for quite some time. So I hope we're finally getting to a resolution.
And Jim, I'm sorry, you said there was a 7-lot subdivision that they're applying for?
Right on this entire parcel. So they're before the planning board now for a subdivision application for the encompassing the parcel that part of the parcel that Sean just mentioned, and including the entire 7-acre lot, I believe. So obviously we have that too. Obviously the planning board will not move on any type of approvals unless these issues are addressed. which
Well,
is-
that's what I was gonna get at. So the planning board either does know or will know about this. and-
Yes, oh yeah, absolutely. We've been coordinated with Janice and other folks in planning, so they're very well aware of the situation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a subject of a lot of discussion over the last few years.
So just Sean, so is there going to be a public hearing on this?
Yes, we're looking to set a public hearing for November 23rd. I do have it on your draft agenda. I usually like to get to the board before doing that, but I did feel time was of the essence with this property as they've ignored several directives and now knocked down the whole structure without permits.
Right. I think we did read a resolution on this. So,
Yeah, it was on.
all right. So everybody's okay. We'll have the hearing on it and then we'll get more information.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. So I guess the next thing is updates. We already covered COVID and we covered the election. So in terms of other updates, can't really think of. I mean, we've all been so focused on those two items. I did speak to the Hampton Bays Beautification Association on Monday night. I think that went really well. People had lots of questions about different things, and really positive responses to the work that we're doing in the Hampton Bays community. So everybody's excited about Canoe Place Inn and how that's getting developed. And, we talked about all kinds of different concepts. They're excited about the Maritime Park along the canal. And, that I believe I've signed everything now I don't know when that work is going to begin on the pavilion and the parking area, but that is, I think that's all in place. So I'll try to get you guys an update as to when that construction is scheduled. But lots of positive things. So anybody else have any particular updates? Yeah, Julie?
So I attended the Southampton Village, Shinnecock Hills, Tuckahoe CAC last night. And a couple of the things that we talked about was their concerns concerning the Concern project, the Full Gospel Church, and also the pool project. And they're not, and they wanted me to make sure that people understood they're not against the project, that they're against some of the issues that may impact their community because of those two projects. We talked a lot about both of them. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that, yes, that they do have concerns and they definitely want their voices to be heard. Along those same lines, some of the people are having difficulty with Zoom meetings. And Jay, you kind of brought this up earlier, especially for big controversial projects. Is there somewhere we can go, somewhere else to hold a meeting? I know the auditorium for sound purposes is really difficult, but there are just some people who at a previous meeting couldn't get into Zoom, and so they couldn't make their voice heard. And although they can send a letter, people do like to come up in front of the board. So maybe that's something we can think about if there's another place to have a meeting on the occasion when we know it's a project that there will be lots of public input for.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Julie. I just don't know between now and the end of the year what would be before us that would draw potentially a larger crowd. I agree, when the pool comes up, I don't know what the next move on the pool is. We are looking at, I don't know what the concerns they had about the pool were, but we are looking at the intersection there in terms of trying to get a green arrow to help traffic move off of McGee, which, it can back up there. And then you mentioned they were concerned about Concern, and I don't know what the concern is there, but we're in the, they're going to have to do an EIS, which will address it. Did that CAC say anything about the cultural resources or?
No, they didn't. That did not come up.
Okay, because that does affect that area as well if they're doing a major addition or a new home, that extra archaeological review, that not everybody will face that additional review, but some will in that area. But does the board does anybody else want to weigh in on this issue of trying to meet in person that Councilman Lofstad is brought up?
Well, I think we all would like to meet in person, but I don't see that we're going to have a public hearing on a more controversial project until after December. So I'm not all that concerned about it, but if we could have a meeting in another township, but in another part of the town, that if the schedule ended up that way, that would be something definitely to look at, but I don't see it on our schedule yet. So
unless there is something that ends up being introduced for public hearing that requires, that anticipates a larger crowd, then I would say, yes, let's schedule that for a special meeting, perhaps, where we could do.
I think we deal with it as we come to it. As I said, I don't see it on there, but yeah, if it came up, I would certainly think that's a valid concern to have.
Yeah.
I know I myself struggle with Zoom every time we have one of these meetings. I'm never sure if I can get in, and thanks to Paula, she talks me through it sometimes. And so I understand the difficulties, and I also, people do they like coming up and looking at us face to face, and Zoom just isn't it. So I appreciate that if something comes up, if we can, have it somewhere person to person, I think the public would appreciate it.
Yeah, anything that I think we all would agree would be somewhat controversial. Yes, we'll do it for a special meeting then, if it's going to be before the end of the year. And then after the end of the year, I think everything's going to be in person.
Good.
That's fair enough.
Will the elevator be done by then, by Christmas?
Would.
That's what's keeping us out, I think, more so than the pandemic and the horrible acoustics in the Highlight Arena.
And I told them that, but
Yeah.
and so they understand that, but really would like to have in person.
Will the elevator arrive by Christmas, huh?
Well, we could use the senior center in Hampton Bays. We've used it in the past. We can, set up a bunch of tables and, do it kind of like a school board meeting or something. And
I'm okay with that. If we think that anything is gonna have more than one or two people at it, I'm okay with doing that. We can do the senior center.
Okay, thank you. I do have one more thing that we discussed at that meeting, was the St. Andrews traffic light on the intersection of St. Andrews and Montauk Highway, causing that ridiculous backup in the afternoon. It's just, and it doesn't seem to, I was on my way last night to the CAC meeting at 6 o'clock and 6:15, and it was backed up from, the res all the way back into the movie theater.
Yeah, that's, so we have started meeting. We've had several meetings of the Traffic Solutions Committee. And, that light keeps coming up. The light at St. Andrews, particularly in the afternoon, also at the college too, but on Montauk Highway. And we have had state representatives there. So I think what we really need to do is do a more concerted push. The state so far has said no. They won't let us put it on blink. They have set it for the maximum green. We were going to send somebody out there to make sure that it's operating correctly, that it's, it's safe.
Can I tell you something that I saw the other day? Was I was heading west going home. Somebody was heading east on Montauk Highway, and they kind of cut the left turn onto St. Andrews, and that flipped the light because they hit the clicker thing. Even though there was nobody sitting at the light at St. Andrews, it still changed. because they made a close turn.
Right, so there's supposed to be an induction loop under the pavement that detects the presence of a vehicle. It shouldn't turn immediately though, but it should
It
start.
does. It does.
Yeah, so that's something that really needs to get looked at. Whether that, that car suddenly that pulls up on St. Andrews and then everybody has to stop, because that car should have to wait a few minutes. So that's worth looking at, but I really do want to get the state to give us a shot at blinking it. So, because I've talked about this a lot with the chief, and when it, at least when it backs up to the village, which is pretty often, just as a public safety measure, we should be able to just start blinking it and just get that traffic to move along. So no, I appreciate that, Julie. That's something that's on my radar. It's on the chief's radar, and this, but maybe if we go back to Assemblyman Thiel and the DOT and push a little harder, maybe we'll get a different response.
Okay, thank you. And that's all I have.
All right, who else? That Traffic Solutions Committee has put together a list of, I want to say about 15 different ideas that we think are worth further pursuing. So the committee is supposed to present by the end of the year. That was their charge. And Tom Neely's been working on that for us. So I know that's one of the big items, is that St. Andrews light and the Tuckahoe, the light at the college too.
Is the
And
atrium
Watermill.
in Hampton Bays on that list? Because there's an accident there at least once a week
Yeah.
or more.
Yep.
That's a problematic road area between the former diner and Springville. That's,
Yep.
That's really what we were looking at with the Good Ground Road extension to have, well, we've all been there, but that's a problematic stretch of road.
Yeah, that Good Ground Road extension, it just doesn't seem like there's much community support for that, if any. So I think we need to look at some other solutions to help mitigate the traffic downtown.
Well, traffic mitigation, this is something I've heard for the past couple of weeks, as doing this thing in each one of our communities. Everywhere you go, back roads, main roads, it's traffic, it's quality of life. And, with the numbers of cars and traffic and construction that we're seeing, this is an issue. And I believe it really, has affected things. It's affecting people's lives. We also have the geographic choke points, right? Hampton Bays in the morning, Southampton in the afternoon with the Shinnecock Canal and, the roadways over the canal, and also Watermill area too with Mecox Bay. There's still only 3 ways to get east and west in Watermill area. So they see something on a smaller scale as well. So, we are certainly working on the intersections and the lights. And those are state and county jurisdictions. That's important for folks to know. Like the supervisor said, we asked the state about the lights and they gave us their first answer. We'll ask again, right, Jay?
Yep. We'll ask again with some additional people asking. We're going to do it with the village and the town making a joint request for that, because the backlog is really messing up the village. It backs up beyond the movie theater, it backs up all the way into the village.
And maybe for the atrium issue, we can have the Hampton Bays, Southampton Town Police and Hampton Bays Ambulance to chime in too, because they're there all the time, cleaning up and, helping people after the accident.
I need to understand that atrium issue better. I know Tom Neely has said that that's a bad spot. Are people making lefts into it, heading eastbound? Is that what happens?
They're heading eastbound, making a left into it, also coming out of the atrium, making a left, heading eastbound onto Montauk Highway.
Okay.
So either way, with the lane that goes north to Flanders Road every time, smack.
Got it. I wonder if it could be accomplished with more of a turning lane. I don't know. But I'll have to look at it. Maybe you'll have the police chief look at it. You know, we don't have a traffic safety engineer, though Tom Houghton's quite good at this kind of stuff. So our acting town engineer. So we can, and he's been really a great voice in these traffic solutions committee meetings. So very helpful. You know, he's also, you know, a guy who likes to ride his bike a lot, and he's out in traffic. He's got a lot of interesting perspectives on traffic flow. So, all right. Any other updates? Okay. Then I think what's next will be executive session. So we have contracts, confidential legal advice, and acquisitions. So I'd like to make a motion to end our work session and go into executive session on those items.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier.